Hello and welcome to Book of the Mouse Club, episode 54, Thursday, March 4th, 2021.
Morning, monsieur.
Where are you off to?
The bookshop. I just finished the most wonderful story about a beanstalk and an ogre and
That's nice. Marie! The baguettes! Hurry up!
I'm sorry, but how can one possibly pay attention to a book with no pictures in it?
My dear child, there are a great many good books in this world without pictures.
I almost bounced clear out of the book. Some bouncing, huh?
Come home or make myself known.
J. Thaddeus Turtle, Esquire. Have you never met him? You will find his story in this delightful little book, The Wind and the Willows.
I've come to return the book I borrowed.
Finished already?
Oh, I couldn't put it down. Have you got anything new?
Welcome back. I'm your host, Courtney, and I'm joined, as always, by my lovely co-host, Emily.
Hey, Courtney. Hey, listeners. It's great to be back. And Courtney, I'm super excited for you to introduce our guest today.
Yes, we're continuing what we lovingly call the Disney podcast universe of overlapping show hosts and guests among some of our favorite shows. As longtime listeners and fans of Dizney Coast to Coast, we're excited to welcome its host, Jeff DePaoli, to the show today. Dizney Coast to Coast, that's Disney with a Z, is a great grab bag of exclusive interviews, deep dives into park history and theming, as well as the latest in theme park news via the House of Mouse headline segments. Beyond Disney Coast to Coast, Jeff has expanded his reach to the Podcast Network, also home to That Halloween Podcast to get you in the true spirit of the spooky season, and You Can Podcast Now, an approachable class that teaches you the fundamentals of creating, maintaining, and growing a podcast. As if that's not enough to keep him busy, Jeff is also a regular contributor to Attractions Magazine with his column DePaoli on DeParks, and you can find him as the voice of Disney trivia on the Alexa for the Amazon Echo Dot Kids edition. Welcome, Jeff.
Hello. Thank you for that introduction. You make me sound so much more impressive than I really am. Thank you.
Well, to us, you are impressive because, Jeff, we were talking before the show that you're one of the first podcasts that got Courtney and I into podcasting. So we're super excited to have you here on the show. And this episode, we particularly saved for you. Jeff, anyone who has listened to your podcast or has heard you as a guest on other shows like our friends, the Mad Chatters, should know how much you love Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. But for those who may not be familiar, can you please tell us why you love Rick Moranis and this film so much?
I mean, is there any explanation necessary when it comes to how wonderful Rick Moranis is? I mean, kind of enough said right there. But, you know, the reason I really got into Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was because as a kid, I was very interested in filmmaking and in particular special effects. And, you know, 1989, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, this was kind of the high point, I think, for practical effects. At least it made a huge impression on me as a kid. And I remember just being obsessed with the effects of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And therefore, you know, falling in love with this movie, falling in love with Rick Moranis. He's just such an effortless actor, whether it's Little Shop of Horrors or Spaceballs, Ghostbusters, The Flintstones, Parenthood, Little Giants. It goes on and on and on. And it just always seems so effortless for him. And I also love the fact that he is an above the title leading man. The movie poster says Rick Moranis in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which, I mean, he is not your typical leading man in Hollywood. And I just love that about him, that he's hit that height. I love him.
I love how much you love him because it just comes through so genuinely on every show I've ever listened to you talk about how much you love Rick Moranis and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And this episode will be filled with opportunities for you to stand on that soapbox and preach your love of this film. But first, let's talk about our novel. So I could not find much. We were reading the junior novelization, and I couldn't find much about the book itself, but I was able to find some information about the authors and Scholastic. So this is the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids junior novelization, which was published in 1989 prior to the film's release. On the copies you guys have, do you have a sticker or something on it that says based on the upcoming movie?
Yes, mine has
by Walt
that.
Disney Pictures? Okay.
Yeah, it's not a sticker, but it's like a little badge on the front. Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of like when you go in the bookstore and you see all the movie titles. Like it's always a thing for me. I like getting books that have the original cover, not the movie cover.
When it's an adaptation, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But this is one I will happily make an exception. So this
I don't think that there was no other option when it came to
that's
this.
true. I guess most of these, that's true.
But I did recently. I will buy both. I'll sometimes like I got the book Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda, which Love, Simon is based on, like with the movie cover, and then I fell in love with it so much I went back and bought the original hardcover with the original cover as well. So I will definitely do that. I'm that guy.
I had both editions of Tuck Everlasting because that's my mom's favorite book. She's a teacher to read to her students. So when Disney did that adaptation, we ended up with both copies.
Yeah.
I purposely go out of my way to find, like, I love the book Ella Enchanted. We're going to talk about other children's books that we love, but I loved Ella Enchanted, and I don't have a copy of the book at all because I refuse to buy. Every book I see is usually the movie cover. I'm like, no, I want the original one from the 90s. But I digress. We're going to talk about some other children's books we like and our experiences reading children's chapter books. But this one particularly is written by Bonnie Bryant Hiller and Neil W. Hiller. They are a husband and wife couple that often worked together and also did children novelizations for Scholastic on other films such as Big, Little Monsters, and Space Camp. They also wrote an original novel together called On the Far Side of the Mirror. Bonnie, though, has done a lot more writing from what I was able to find. She also has written novelizations on her own for Superman, the Karate Kid series, Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, multiple Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle films, Ghostbusters, and Shipwrecked. Bonnie Bryant Hiller is also known for her children's series, The Saddle Club, and is a contributing author to Pick a Path series, and also wrote the novel Rent a Third Grader. Personally, I am not familiar with any of her independent titles, but hopefully they're familiar to some of you, and we'll encourage you to check out her novelizations of different films. This is a reading level 4, age 8, published by Scholastic. So this is a 4th grade reading level. So imagine yourself back in your 4th grade classroom, going to a Scholastic Book Fair, and you find this on the shelf. That's our context. Scholastic this year is celebrating its 100th anniversary, which is pretty exciting. And while the company started as a magazine in Pennsylvania, it grew into the book distributor we know and love today, really during the 1980s and 90s. So when this novelization came out, this is the height of Scholastic, as it's branding itself to the Scholastic that we nostalgically know. 1981 was the first year ever of the Scholastic Book Fair, and the Babysitters Club and the Magic School Bus really took off in 1986. Then in the 1990s, Scholastic would add beloved series such as I Spy, Captain Underpants, Goosebumps, Harry Potter, as well as many others we know, to their shelves. Scholastic is the largest publisher of children's books in the world and claims 90% of schools, both public and private in the United States, use their book club, and all 50 states and 6 other countries use Scholastic Book Fairs.
I'm so excited you mentioned book fairs. I can't believe they're turning 40, but that was like the biggest day for me in elementary school. Like, it was probably a week, I think, that they'd be out there. You'd like come with your little cash in hand, pick out your books. You got to like preview the books to make your list. Oh, I love that. Like, I feel like I've been chasing that high in adulthood ever since.
I can remember that paper catalog you would get in advance.
Yes.
Like it was like this super thin, almost tissue paper that you would be, open up and read all the different titles that would be there. Yes, I remember that.
I think
those
they
are great
still
times.
Actually have the paper catalogs. My mom is a kindergarten teacher, and when I've been home, I've seen them floating around. But she would definitely, I didn't order through the class. She'd put me on her order, I guess, to get more points or whatever. We had like Scholastic insider trading going on.
My mom was also an elementary school teacher, and even when I was in college, she would tell me when the Scholastic Book Fair was at her school, because there were a couple books from when I was a kid that I was still looking for. I loved the Dear America series, and for a while they stopped publishing them, or at least publishing the like first 20 books that were in the set, and I really wanted some copies, and they've been really hard to find. So even in college, she would call me, like send me pictures to my phone of books, asking if I wanted them to like complete any series that I had as a kid.
That's so fun. Actually, 2 years ago, I was back in Maryland where my mom resides and happened to be home when she had the book fair. So I came in to help out with her classroom that Friday. And they had an adult section, I guess, for like parents, you know, who come for Scholastic Book Night with their kids. And I'm like, I'm buying a book. I'm going to be an adult at the Scholastic Book Fair because it's just such a delightful experience. And I wanted to support her school.
Now we call that Barnes & Noble, but for some reason, Scholastic Book Fairs are just so much more fun than Barnes & Noble.
It was a special event.
You found that high as an adult. You've reached it.
I just have to go around to schools. I don't think that's allowed, but it was a nice experience.
Why is this adult woman at this school?
Who is she? Who is your child? Oh, I don't have one. Security. Yeah, but we certainly love our books, but this is a new take for us in a junior novelization because I think we've often read books that inspired films, but this is a book inspired by a film. So let's just give a little background on the film. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is a Disney family film and a live-action classic. It kind of pains me to say something from our childhood VHS collection is a classic, but the film will celebrate its 32nd anniversary this June. As Emily said, it was released in 1989, and the film follows the misadventures of the Zielinski kids, along with their neighbors, the Thompsons, after they've accidentally been shrunk by family patriarch Wayne Zielinski's scientific invention. This is one of many beloved roles portrayed by Rick Moranis, who returned to play Professor Zielinski in its subsequent sequels and the theme park 3D show. Now, Rick has rarely made public appearances or sought acting roles within the past 2 decades, but he did delight fans of the film with a rare appearance in last summer's Pop Culture on Disney+, which celebrated the film and its legacy of unique special effects. Audiences really took to these special effects, and the film was dubbed a surprise hit at the box office in the summer of '89. The film grossed $222 million, which would be about $460 million adjusted for inflation today. And it was actually Disney's highest grossing live action film at that time, and it held the title for a solid 5 years. Within the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids franchise are its sequels Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, released in 1992, Disney Parks' Honey, We Shrunk the Audience in 1994, and Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves in 1997, with only Moranis returning for the latter. Shortly after that, the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the TV show, also premiered in 1997, but Moranis nor no one else from the films returned for that show. There's so much to love about this film, and I found the book adaptation to be a bit interesting, so I'm ready to dive in there if you are.
I do want to say before we move on, you mentioned $222 million at the box office for Disney. Do you happen to remember what else came out in 1989 for Disney?
So much. Okay, I always get this mixed up. I love Troop Beverly Hills, but that's technically not Disney. They just showed it on Disney Channel a lot.
Think
right?
Animation. 1989.
Oh, Little Mermaid, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, bigger hit than The Little Mermaid in 1989.
Crazy.
Another piece of evidence for why Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is a great movie.
Isn't that crazy to think about, though? It was a bigger hit.
Stuck on live action.
I wonder if people were riding the high of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, because that was 1988. Lots of great special effects that maybe people are craving more, and seeing those things in the trailer, they're getting more of those awesome.
In fact, when Honey, I Shrunk the Kids hit theaters and on the VHS, there's a Roger Rabbit short before the movie.
Yes, that's right.
I forgot about that. Now thinking back to the VHS, yes, good.
I know it's been so long since I've watched it on VHS and I don't own it on DVD, so it's been a very long time since I watched Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Well, aside from this weekend.
And
well, yeah.
It hasn't been long for me, and I have the VHS, and we'll pop that in just for the feels.
Very nice. When Emily and I were in college together, I had my childhood VCR and Disney VHS collection, and she would come over and we'd watch them. And you wouldn't fast forward the previews at that point because it would be exciting to be like, coming summer 1998. And you're like, oh, it's Mulan.
It is really funny how things that you used to annoy you. Like for me, I know, gosh, I sound so old when I say stuff like this, but like I will go on YouTube and watch like vintage Halloween commercials.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is the stuff I used to fast forward through or wish that I could fast forward through. And now I'm like watching them for fun. And I find it really ironic when like a commercial will be attached to that commercial, the compilation I want to see. So like a real life current times YouTube
it'll pop in.
will be at the beginning or in the middle of this vintage Halloween commercial, that stuff that I want to see, and I'll get annoyed by the commercial. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm literally watching commercials. I have no reason to get upset.
It interrupted it, though. I completely understand. Well, in terms of reading, I'd love to know from you guys, when was the last time you read an elementary level chapter book? Emily, it sounded like you were collecting some from the book fair.
I became a reader 3rd grade, Scholastic Book. This was the mail-in order, The Amazing Days of Abby Hayes. Was some of my favorite books, Anne Mazer. I actually just donated all 20 of my books of that series to a 4th grade classroom. I finally let them go. It was really sad. But I have some that I revisit, and I've been very lucky that I had great elementary school and English teachers through middle school and high school that made me fall in love with books that I probably never would have picked up. And there's a couple that I still read, maybe not every year, but like every other year. Tuck Everlasting, like you mentioned, 4th grade, Mrs. Left's class. I still go back and reread that one, as well as Freak the Mighty is one that she introduced me to. And Mrs. Camarado, 5th grade, Stepping on the Cracks is probably my favorite book of elementary school level, about 2 children, best friends, growing up in World War II, actually based in College Park, Maryland, right off the campus of University of Maryland, which I would go to 12 years later. So I have a handful that I do revisit. And I like revisiting them because it kind of reminds me why I love to read. They're not complex. It's really interesting to me how they don't make you think as hard, maybe because we're adults, but you still end up thinking about wonderful themes. I'm most thinking about like The Giver, Number the Stars. You don't have to be complex to talk and think about amazing universal themes, and also just enjoy a story. It doesn't always have to be an adult classic or, the new fiction novel to get you excited about reading.
And what about you, Jeff?
First of all, I'd like to say that I'm happy to be on this show, but I just want to let people know I can read adult books. It's not like they were like, ooh, Jeff's coming on, time for a junior novelization. But the last time I've read a junior novelization, I don't know, to be honest. It's been a very long time, but I will say I definitely still have books from my childhood. I didn't love reading as a kid, though. I like it much more as an adult, and so a lot of those books were junior novelizations that I had. Jurassic Park and Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, and just a lot of those that I still have. The original series that I really loved was the Indian in the Cupboard book series by Lynn Reed Banks.
Yes.
And I still have those at my parents' house in Massachusetts, and I do look at them and I often think to myself, oh, I should just pick this up and read it, because I certainly don't remember them super, super well. But yeah, this was the first time in a while since I've actually sat and read it. And it's so delightful because you can actually read the entire thing in one sitting.
Yeah, it had been a while for me as well, though I ended up reading a children's book unexpectedly. Last year, they announced that the American Girl doll would now have a girl doll from the 1980s, and her name is Courtney. So I was very intrigued about Courtney's series. I grew up with the American Girl dolls, and my American Girl doll, Molly, is now retired, so that makes me feel old. And Courtney, the American Girl doll, has a Molly doll, and it's a little bit meta. But I wanted to read her story and, feel some of that familiarization, reading through her era and what children went through in the 80s. It got a little dark. It talked about the Challenger disaster, and I was like, this children's book of 102 pages took a turn rather abruptly. But other than that, like you, Jeff, there's some that I have in my collection, but not my go-to pick for reading.
That is crazy that there's an 80s American Girl doll now. Is there a 90s one, or is 80s the
Not
newest?
yet.
Okay.
Feel
so it just means we're really
well.
old.
There's the girls of today, but in terms of
I think the first American Girl of today was 2001. I don't think she's, because I have her. Her name is Lindsay.
But it's not part of the whole, like, the history series. So, like, once we get a 2001 real one, then I'll feel even older. I feel like if they tackle the Challenger, that one's certainly going to tackle some stuff.
The 9/11 American Girl book, like, come on.
It's gonna
There's got to be a podcast out there about American Girl
There
dolls.
is. They read all of the books and talked about them. Oh, there is a podcast out there. I've listened to a few episodes. The specific name of the podcast is escaping me. I only listened through the Felicity series, and then with all the Disney podcasts I listen to, at some point it's hard to keep up with everyone. But yeah, it's interesting. It is one that I think it is geared towards adults, though. They're talking about it in a nostalgic, like, we read these because we grew up them as kids. So maybe not listen to them with your children, because there is a little bit of adult language.
Oh, interesting. It's like American Girl dolls, but for adults. But I guess this kind of ties into that. You know, they're revisiting those novels as adults, and we did this here. I want to know what you guys think can be challenging for us reading a novel like this as an adult.
I mean, I don't know if challenging is necessarily the right word, but for me, I just know the film so well that it's a bit strange reading the changes, which I completely expected there to be. In fact, it's part of the reason why I was most interested in reading it. It was like, I want to see what the differences are between this book and the novel, of which I'm sure there will be many, because a lot of times, you know, these get released a bit before the movies come out, or right around when they are released. And so that means that they're being worked on several years before that, which means that they're being based on the screenplays. And that screenplay isn't necessarily what was actually finally shot and edited together. So I think that was probably the challenge, for lack of a better term, just knowing the film so well and going into this book with that so fresh in my mind. Yeah,
I think, you know, in terms of reading, as you said earlier, it's something that you can definitely just sit down and read. This was only, I believe, 89 pages, 87 or so, under 100 pages. So, and rather big font and large margins. So a very easy read. Emily, was there anything particular you found challenging?
Similar to, well, I don't know the film backwards and forwards, sideways, upside down in Spanish, like Jeff. Yes, like knowing the film, and especially those iconic scenes, and you're looking for them when you're reading, can be a challenge. But I'm also thinking about, like, some challenges I have now when I go back and read, like, any book, like I mentioned a bunch that I've read, that I still read from my childhood, is that particularly adult characters are hard to read in these books. Like, you expect kids to speak this way. Like, I'm thinking about, like, the dialogue, but in here, like, Wayne Zielinski's character, we only get him a few times. There's not a ton of adult presence in here, but when he does talk, you're almost like, adults don't speak like that. They would use different vocabulary or longer sentences. So sometimes you still have to remember that while you're reading this, it is meant for a fourth grader, not us.
Yeah. Can I mention, I don't know if you want to hit this now yet or not, but the twins thing, because that was actually really challenging for me. Shall we?
Let's do this. Let's talk about all these differences between the novel and the film.
Here's the thing. This isn't even a difference. This is a confusion, because several points in this book, they mention the twins. And I'm like, okay, there are definitely no twins in the movie. And I'm like, did they mention that these characters are twins in this book? And then I went back to the beginning and started reading again. And no.
I did the same thing. I reread like the first 20 pages twice.
Yeah, I'm like, there is definitely an age difference. They mention it. I'm like, so who are these twins that are mentioned several times in this book? I still have no idea what they're referring to. And so that was honestly the biggest challenge for me, because it frustrated the heck out of me. Do you have any ideas?
When I first saw it, I thought maybe like when they were in the backyard playing, that maybe they mentioned somewhere like, and the twins were playing in the baby pool, like way off to the side. And like they were just mentioned and we just never see them again, except when they go into the house, like Russ looks back at the twins and then walks into the house. And I was like, okay, maybe I missed that. Nope, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a theory about how it ended up in the book, but this does not excuse it or like give us a definitive answer. But you were hitting the nail right on the head, Jeff, in terms of the title on the cover says a novel, or the byline, a novel by B.B. Hiller and Neil W. Hiller, based on the screenplay by Ed Naha and Tom Schulman, and story by, it's a lot of credits, and story by Stuart Gordon and Brian Usna and Ed Naha. So it seemed like this was written while it was in development, especially because it says the upcoming movie. It doesn't seem like it was directly tied into, I think, if you think about Scholastic Book Fairs and the schedule, if this film was coming out in 1989 in the summer, the Scholastic Book Fair, you want to get it in there ahead of that in the spring. So I just felt like the production line, they're probably working off of an earlier script, as you say, but then I just think it's bad editing. Like, that seems like an easy thing that you could remove for confusion, because it certainly caused all of us a lot of confusion.
To say multiple times in the book. This wasn't like a one-time thing. This was multiple times in the books they refer to the twins. The only thing I'm like, okay, this seems like an editing mistake, but I can't believe it happened multiple times. But the only other thing I thought was that maybe Nick and I'm blanking on his name, not Russ, Ron. I'd like, they're neighbors, so they're obviously, is Ron the right name? Am I saying that right?
Yes, Ron.
Ron, sorry. I can't believe I forgot that. Ron and Nick, maybe they're the same age, and so like they just call them the twins. But even if that's the case, I mean, they're definitely not siblings. And if that's what they're doing, they really do not set that up at all. I don't know. Speaking
of age, that's just a minor difference too. On page 1, it says 10-year-old Ron Thompson, but then it definitely said in the film that he's 12. Like, there's an aside about that, an exchange, I think, between Ron and his mom. So there were a lot of differences. I want to tie in a different question as we continue to talk about these differences, about whether you watched the film first or read the novel first and how that affected it. Jeff, I know you know it forwards and backwards, but Emily and I particularly chose different paths. So Emily, do you want to share what you did?
Sure. So I watched the film first and then read the book. And I think it's probably similar what Jeff, you said. When you started reading the book, you were playing the film in your head the whole time. And all I could think, I was like, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. That kind of happened. Maybe happened. Nope, didn't happen. So like I was constantly comparing the two. But particularly as the film as the highlight, whereas I feel like most times when we usually read books first and then watch film, like you said at the top of the episode, Courtney, like it's reverse. You compare the film to the book.
I was really confused because I said, oh, Emily, this will be an important like a piece of discussion. Let's do opposite things. So I read the book first, and now I have seen Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I owned it on VHS, but it had probably been at least 15 years since I had seen the movie, but familiar enough with the beats of the story. So then I start reading it. I'm like, I don't remember that. Oh, maybe I'm just not remembering it correctly. And one of the major differences, the end scene when they're being, made back to their normal size, there's a scene where little Russ becomes very big Russ and like grows to the size of a house. I'm like, I just feel like that would have stuck out to me visually as a kid, but I don't know, maybe I'm just forgetting it. So then when I sat down to watch it the next day, I'm like, nope, that just wasn't in there, or it's not in the film. It was in the book. So I picked up on the differences from a different angle.
Okay, now I have something to say about that moment, because you're right, it doesn't happen in the movie, but I do like the idea of, in the book overall, there was, when the kids originally shrunk, they're shrunk as, in couples in the movie. Here, it kind of happened more individually, and like they're like one of the kids saw it happening, was like, here, go get help, and it was too late. He got shrunk anyway, and so it was interesting how they dealt with that. But I find this whole blowing up Russ Thompson interesting at the end, which, by the way, if you remember in the movie, they tested on the dad. They shrink the dad and then blow him back up, which doesn't happen in the book. But when they blow up Russ Thompson, it reminds me of a moment at the end of the movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, where you see they blew up the Thanksgiving dinner. I assume it was Thanksgiving, with the giant turkey and the giant dog tree. And I have always had such an issue with this because in Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, at the beginning of that movie, they're trying to figure out how to blow stuff up. I'm like, your first movie, and now I realize your first book. In both cases, you know how to blow stuff up. Why are we wasting time at the beginning of this movie? I digress, but yes.
That's an excellent point. In terms of other differences, something that I did remember because it traumatized me as a child was when Auntie dies. I think it's fair enough to say this is going to be filled with spoiler. Spoiler alert! It's been 32 years. I was like, I wonder how they're going to handle that for children. And they kind of just let Auntie walk away into the sunset unharmed. I choose to accept that as my canon.
Yeah, I did notice that. I have a long list of little things.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, so Amy wears glasses in this. She does not in the movie. There's that. I did learn.
More shy.
Yeah, definitely.
She's not Miss Popular. And there was a moment where she said, but Russ had never noticed her. I was like, nuh-uh, in the film, it's the other way around.
Oh, she had
never noticed Russ.
I did find out that Quark, the name of the dog, is named after a mysterious subatomic particle. I actually never realized that, so I learned something. One thing that's mentioned a ton in this book that is hinted on in the movie is Nick's allergies. That is from the very beginning. They talk about Nick's allergies, and it becomes part of the story. But it's just a little blip in the movie. I find that to be kind of fascinating. That there was obviously interest in making that a big part of the story at one point in the screenplay, it sounds like.
I think it became too much of a liability because reading the book with every mention of that, I'm like, how is this kid alive? He's being buried in pollen. But they explained it in the movie because his nose was too small for the particles to go in. Okay.
Yeah. I do wonder if that was just something to also try to appeal to school kids because they are very hyper aware of their allergies. That it's just something that they can relate to as they're reading. I don't know.
Is that something kids talk about? Is that water cooler talk?
Well, I know schools are hyper aware. There are peanut-free classrooms.
I don't know. When I was a kid, we were allowed to bring in cupcakes, and it was a glorious time.
You have to get all that approved. High school, we're not as crazed about it because the kids have a lot more independence and whatnot. But when we're told hey, if you're going to give candy in class, maybe pick a non-peanut option. Maybe pick Jolly Ranchers would be better than or something like that.
Oh God, sugar stuff over the chocolate? No way. Sorry, I need my Snickers.
I usually
gotta satisfy that hunger.
I grab Kit Kats and Jolly Ranchers. So then there's something for everybody, but also Kit Kats are better for braces.
Fair enough.
Other things I think about as a high school teacher.
What else is on your list, Jeff?
Right at the beginning, if you remember at the beginning of the movie, Big Russ Thompson yells out the window to Wayne Szalinski. In this book, he doesn't. He yells out the window to his kids, which I thought was just a weird little change. I loved the story of Ron Thompson using the syrup to, playing with the syrup and seeing the bugs get stuck in it when he's still full size, and then later it comes to bite him in the butt. I thought that was such an interesting little moment that I kind of wish was in the movie, to be honest, because later on we see him get stuck in that syrup in the backyard when he's shrunk, and I was like, ha, serves you right, buddy. But
it was you all along.
Yeah, I thought that was super, super interesting.
Yeah, they swapped that out for, I think, the scorpion, because Auntie in the book saves him from the syrup. But in the film, he saved, I guess for the sake of film, another creature is so much more interesting than quicksand syrup, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Plus, they'd kind of just gone through that with a big water moment, and her almost drowning. Yeah. So good choice for the movie, but I did think it was a really nice touch in the book. There's no camping trip going on for the Thompsons in this book. There's no mention of that whatsoever. One moment that I thought was really interesting was when Wayne comes home and goes up to the attic and sees his furniture missing because it had all been shrunk. He blames his wife for it. And you have a moment where he goes downstairs, makes a phone call. And if you don't know this movie, at the beginning of the story, the wife is gone off to her parents' house because her and Wayne had a fight. And so he calls, his mother-in-law's house and leaves a voicemail being like, I can't believe you took the furniture. I was like, whoa, like very out of character for Wayne Szalinski. And there's more of that. And we'll get to that at the end of this episode because it's part of the quote I found. But yeah, that was weird. There was a lot of stuff. They use a bottle cap as a water boat at some point. I do love the fact that the Oreo they mentioned is double stuffed. I had no idea that double stuffed Oreos existed back in 1989. I thought that was like a newer thing.
I didn't realize that either. I want to hone in on the parents there. That really stood out to me, revisiting and going into the novel first and then the book. I feel like the parents are absent for so much of the book. Yes. And I'm like, don't these parents care that their kids are missing? Whereas it's basically a whole subplot in the film of, Wayne looking with the magnifying glass in the grass, people observing him, like, what's going on. I'm like, oh, he does care about his children. That's right.
Well, what's so fascinating is he doesn't know that they're shrunk until the end of this
in the book. Yeah.
He doesn't realize this until the Cheerios moment from the film and the book where he sees his son shrunk. He's like, oh my gosh, honey, I shrunk the kids. And it was like,
there it is.
I'm like, it took that long for them to realize the kids were shrunk. Holy moly. Big difference.
And the Thompsons, it's like, do they care about their kids?
I mean,
like,
we just never visit the parents, so they could care.
Yeah.
We don't know because we never see it.
And I think that might be a choice for the children's books. I feel like you said, like screenplays changed, but I feel like for the film, we obviously have these characters cast, so they have those subplots happening around the kids. But if you're going to write a book for fourth graders, you can't have multiple plots going at the same time where you flip back and forth between characters. We have it occasionally where like the dad's leaving for work and you hear him, like he says something before he leaves, but it's all happening within the same scene. But if we go back and forth like you can easily in a film with points of view, that's something that maybe for a fourth grade reading level you're trying not to do. So I'm curious what things are different in the book because they were eventually written out of the screenplay, or because they were like, if we're going to turn this into something for fourth graders, fourth graders, we need to change something to make it more readable.
Right, make the focus on the kids, because if I'm a kid, I want to read about kids, not about marital problems.
Plus, I'm sure page count is something that they consider at that age level, so they probably like, okay, we got to cut out a bunch. What are we going to do? And the parents really are kind of bookends to this book. They're at the beginning and at the end, and that's about it. We don't see their struggles of trying to figure out what happened to their kids. It's interesting, and it changes a lot, in my opinion, because the movie very much is about, family and maybe taking family for granted and stuff like that. And although the book touches on that, it's not nearly as big a deal as it is in the movie.
I do want to caveat before we move forward for listeners. I do not claim to be an expert in elementary school reading skills. I am a high school teacher. This is based off of my very, very limited experience and own personal opinions, reflecting on my own reading experiences as a kid. So I just want to throw that out there before we get any comments or emails from fellow teachers out there who definitely know way more than I do about kids' reading habits in elementary school.
It's going to be my mom, the kindergarten teacher, sending me.
And so I do want to caveat, I am not here trying to say I know what is happening. These are things I'm just curious about with my very limited knowledge.
Let's hone in on that theme piece, though, as you were kind of alluding to. What do you see as the overall theme? And do you think the book or the film does a better job of communicating that message? You're kind of hinting at it, Jeff, so do you want to elaborate a little more?
Yeah, I mean, I think the theme is simply the importance of family and feeling heard, like, as a human, whether you're a child who wants to be heard by his parents or a parent wanting the other, spouse to listen to you. I feel like being heard in, family is really a big part of it. And the movie did this much, much, much better than the book. Well, like I said, the parents are simply bookends here. And I think that you're right when this was done to make it more exciting for children to read is what it comes down to, I think. But yes, I think the book delivers that message much, much better. I'm sorry, the movie delivers that message Yeah, much.
Yeah, I agree. It's a bit on the nose in the book. I feel like at the end, the dad's like, I promise to pay more attention to you, and like really like spells it out. But it's a more of that difference of showing versus telling when it comes to storytelling. And you're able to show that more in a film medium versus like they literally have to spell it out in that short under 90-page book.
I also think in the book we kind of hear that theme more from the Thompson kids. From Russ saying, you know, like my dad, you know, being bigger. Even in the book, he kind of mentions that because at the end when he's blown up, he's like, look, who's the big kid now, Dad? But we don't get that conclusion from Mr. Thompson like we do in the book, how like both families kind of reconcile. In the book, it's only Mr. Zielinski, but I feel like we don't hear much from the Zielinski kids other than I hope mom and dad, you know, resolve their problems. I feel like we hear more about the not being heard from the Thompson kids.
Yeah. No, I would agree.
But going back to juvenile novelization, we've touched on it a couple of times that the point of these books is to advertise to kids, hey, come see this film. Yay, Scholastic Book Fair. Give us this says it was $2.95. Give us $2.95. Enjoy this. Hopefully you'll also go see the film. Do you think it's successful? Do you think the book would entice you, you know, put ourselves back in our 4th grade classes, Scholastic Book Fair, would this entice you to go see the film?
Heck yeah. Oh my God, yes.
With Jeff, I think this is a great introduction to it, like immerses them in the story, but I think this is one of the rare occasions where the movie is better than the book, but that's probably to be expected because yeah, you have the power of imagination as you're reading this, but what makes that movie so special is, Jeff, what you said you loved about it, the amazing special effects that still hold up today and without having like that visual aid. I think this is a good toe dip, and then yes, the movie's going to enhance what you loved about the book.
Plus, let's just talk about that book cover. I mean, that's a selling point right there. I mean, it's the movie poster of, you know, Wayne Zielinski staring at the dog and the small children climbing across their noses, essentially. Like, it's such a fun image for a kid. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, although it really should be Honey, I Shrank the Kids, right? I think shrunk is grammatically incorrect, but yeah. Am I right, or am I making that up?
I have a degree in English, and I'm not sure, so I'm sorry to admit that. But now I'm questioning myself.
I'm pretty sure it should be Honey, I Shrank the Kids.
Past tense of
shrink, shrank, and shrunk.
Stink, stank, stunk.
Shrunk.
Exactly.
So while Courtney's looking into that, I agree that I think
it's shrank.
It would be shrank.
Shrunk is past participle, but I don't know what past participle means. Oh, it has to be paired with have, as in I have shrunk the jeans.
So it should either be Honey, I Have Shrunk the Kids, or Honey, I Shrank the Kids. Either of those is acceptable.
Or Honey, I've Shrunk the Kids.
There we go. Honey, I've Shrunk the Kids. That's an option. This is very much like the whole Santa Claus discussion, where, you know, the Santa Claus Tim Allen movie has raised an entire generation of people who don't know how to spell Santa Claus's last name correctly because they think it ends in an E, like a legal clause.
That's me. I'm one of them. Yep.
Yeah. Well,
it messed with
Honey,
me.
I Shrunk the Kids has grammatically screwed up an entire generation.
I do want to say, I think for the book, it would also entice you because what the kids are going for, like you said, with those effects, even reading the book, though, like how excited are you? You're like, wow, what if I found a giant Oreo cookie? What if I fell into a river of maple syrup? Like, there's enough here to get you going as a kid that then when you see these things play out on screen, even though some of the scenes are very different, like they're just that much better.
We didn't even touch on the whole scene with Quark running, like the kids are, you know, on Quark, the dog, and he like runs out into the street and causes a traffic accident. I was like, whoa, where's this in the movie? And frankly, that would have given me a panic attack. The B ride was enough, but yeah, that was a whole sequence that is nowhere in the movie.
Well, let's talk about sequences. I'd love to know what are each of yours favorite scenes in the movie, and how do you think it was handled in the book, if relevant and included in the book? And did you end up having any different favorite scenes, seeing how different these two things were?
So for me, the Oreo was always my favorite. The cookie. I love cookies. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But I've always loved that scene in the movie as a kid because I thought that would be so cool. Like, what if I found a giant cookie? And it reminded me almost of an ice cream sandwich more than a cookie when you see it up close. But I always found that so cool. And in the book, I actually thought it was a little more epic because in the film, we get just Auntie, which is a great scene, introduced us wonderfully to this new character. But in the film, it does that. In the book, it's a lot of ants. It's not just Auntie. It is all of the ants. And we know ants do not travel alone. And they kind of say that in the film. They're like, if he's here, imagine where all the others are. But then we never see any other ants.
In other words, we don't have the budget to build a bunch.
Very true. But in the book, we have all of these ants, and it's while they're trying to kind of navigate away from all of the ants and still try to get a little bit of the cookie without getting attacked, that they run into Auntie. So I still have, I think, my favorite scene. I thought it was really cool, though, in the book that it was heightened a little bit because, yeah, there are no budget issues. There's just ink.
What about you, Jeff?
I really liked the unshrinking of the kids sequence in the book quite a bit. I think I liked it more than in the movie. I liked seeing Russ get blown up, and I thought that was fun. And also the bugs in the syrup thing that I previously mentioned. I thought that was really just kind of fun seeing Ron screw around with the bugs at the beginning of the book, and then it come to bite him later. And that's something that doesn't exist in the movie at all.
I really like the scene of them flying on a bee, and maybe that's because there was that experience at Disney MGM Studios where they did like the behind the scenes and like a kid got picked to fly on the bee. I was never that child. Like that sticks with me. And I thought that the description in the book was well written to kind of capture the excitement of that. I'll just read the paragraph here. It said, meanwhile, Russ was enjoying a breathtaking and scary ride high above the yard on the back of the bee. The bee acted like an airborne bucking bronco trying to shake Russ off its back. Russ tried to get control of it by grabbing its wildly flapping wings, but his main problem was to keep from falling off. I like that description of a bucking bronco. I feel like that really does capture what's happening to the kids in that moment.
And it's funny because in the movie, when they're on Auntie, we kind of get a little bit of that because we even get them going yeehaw in the movie, which is like, and pretty much the animatronic that they built was an ant on a bucking bronco machine. So that's kind of funny.
What about favorite characters? Jeff, I'll let you go first because you shared that you're excited for this part.
Always Wayne Szalinski. I don't even care if he's only in the beginning and end. All I can picture is Rick Moranis. Although, once again, there's stuff that the character says in the book that just feels so off base with Rick Moranis in that role. But still, it's Wayne Szalinski. It's gotta be.
I'm interested how his character changed. Like, I wonder if when they were writing the children's book, if there was a little bit more in the screenplay about him maybe being a little bit more aggressive.
I heard that
in his anger, but maybe
changed.
Not.
Was Rick always the first choice for the role?
I believe it was John Candy, and very much like in Ghostbusters, same thing happened. At least so I hear. Is they wanted John Candy, and he's like, no, but you should use my friend Rick Moranis, which I always find so funny, just because you couldn't go more opposite with John Candy than Rick Moranis. But I believe, and actually, you know what? I think I've heard Chevy Chase as well was considered for Wayne Szalinski.
And I could see Chevy Chase more as the character that's in this book.
Yeah, for sure. More of a jerk. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. I'm picturing another, I believe, 1989 film. I love Christmas Vacation, and like, you know, that's two very different dads in these books / films. For me, I really like Amy. I think just it's more about representation. Like, as a young girl, I was like, I want to follow her story. You know, it's aspirational. She's not necessarily in the book, but in the film, like this popular girl, she's going to the dance. That sounds cool. But I thought it was interesting how she does come across like a little more shy, reserved, and I guess kind of like she's unpopular in the book in terms of like her school social hierarchy. So quite a difference, and I wonder if like casting had to do with that as well.
As always, Courtney and I have very similar answers to lots of things. I also really enjoy Amy. I think that's, like you said, that representation. That's the character as a young girl. She's the really, other than the mom's, the only girl in the film. I am curious if maybe her relationship also change, because we get none of the flirtation between her and Russ. Like, there's a quick glance of like, Russ never noticed me in the book, but that's like it. There is zero flirtation here, other than we know that they are 15 years old. But I feel like the film really rounds out because they're trying to appeal to the whole family. So you've got Nick and Ron for like the kids. Then you've got Amy and Russ for the teenage crowd to kind of identify with, and then the parents for the parents. So I think we get a lot more. The film gives us a lot more within these relationships between all these people. I still liked Amy in the book, but I think Nick talking about his allergies a lot in the book was funny.
I love Nick. Oh, I love
He's
Nick
still great in the
so
film
much.
too. It's hard for me to pick between Amy and Nick because Nick's just so funny. He's a little dad, and I love it.
And he's really the only one that continues through most of the stuff. Well, I'm just thinking because he's in Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, and Amy is not. Which we can move into theme park attractions and representation, because this had probably more than some people would expect. Unfortunately, most of them are gone now, but we will get into our memories of those. We have Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, which was a 4D movie, a ride kind of attraction because the theater moved a little bit. That debuted at Epcot in 1994 and later made its way to Disneyland Paris, and Tokyo Disneyland, all by 1998. And it was featured at the theme parks until 2010. Rick Moranis, Marcia Strassman, who is the mom, and Robert Oliveri, who we just talked about as Nick, reprise their role from this film, and then the Schalker twins portray Adam from Honey, I Blew Up the Kid from both of those feature-length films. And in this attraction, he's being given an award by Dr. Nigel Channing, played by Eric Idle, about his shrinkway. And Wayne accidentally shrinks the audience and sends them on an adventure with rats, snakes, and babies. That then ties into Journey into Imagination with Figment, which opened in 1999, and it followed the theme of Journey into Imagination to re-include Figment, since there was a brief overlay with just Dr. Nigel Channing from Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, and he's hosting this area known as the Imagination Institute. The story states that his grandfather established the institute. I think this was a little bit of lore, not quite explored in the attraction itself. But this attraction features references to Wayne Szalinski as well as Dr. Philip Brainerd from Flubber, released around the time of this opening, and Dean Higgins, which was Joe Flynn's role in the Dexter Riley films. So we see kind of a shared universe here between some of our live action professors and Disney films. And then what I personally think is the best, but we can discuss, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie set adventure. This was a playground area at Disney MGM Studios, then Disney's Hollywood Studios, designed to look like the outdoor backyard of the first film, and it unfortunately closed in 2016. So what memories do you have of these attractions? Do you have a favorite? And I could just go on about the playground.
Oh, also good. I mean, Honey, I Shrunk the Audience is fantastic. I vividly remember doing it in Epcot for the first time and seeing special effects in that show that I had never experienced before. I remember the room, like the entire room shaking when you were shrunk, and, you know, the full-size people were walking around and stuff, and just the vibrations of the floor. And I, once again, a kid interested in special effects, I was kind of like, how are they doing this? Like, it kind of blew my mind that they were shaking the entire room on this kind of gimbal system and stuff. So I have really, really fond memories of that attraction. I love that you can still see Wayne Szalinski. And by the way, anybody listening who happens to listen to Disney Coast to Coast, all of you who send me pictures of Wayne Szalinski and the queue for, Journey into Imagination these days, I love that you send me those. I will never get tired of seeing them. So thank you so much. But, I love that he's worked in there. But that playground, oh my gosh, I just remember as a kid, once again, being obsessed with special effects and seeing on the Disney Channel the making of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And I just remember saying, I just want to be on that set. I want to visit that set. And that playground was the closest I ever got to it. And I may or may not have contacted some Imagineers when they shut that down, asking for some pieces of it to be saved and shipped to me. It never happened, but
it was worth a try.
It was definitely worth a try. I am still pissed off to this day that they didn't take some of those blades of grass or giant super soakers or something and put them in Toy Story Land. Like,
I remember you saying that, and it makes so much sense. Like, it's a nice little wink and a nod to kind of the shared area of the back lot that both that and Star Wars Galaxy's Edge took over, and it's the right scale. It would fit perfectly.
Play-Doh, the Super Soaker, a Lego, something from the Honey, I Shrunk the Kid movie set adventure absolutely would have fit in Toy Story Land. Shame on them.
I think I loved this attraction so much because I am very short. Emily's actually shorter than me, so maybe you had a similar experience as a kid. In terms of the thrill rides, it took a while for me to be like tall enough to do things like Rock and Roller Coaster or Tower of Terror. So for me, I'm like, I love the Great Movie Ride and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie adventure because these are the things I'm tall enough to enjoy at this park. And we would often go in the summer because my mom's a teacher. So like the water features, like the squirting Lego, it was a great place to cool off, blow off some steam, run around. I think my mom probably had to like pull me out of there because I didn't want to stop playing. She's like, "Hey, you've had enough. I paid for us to go to this theme park. Let's go do the backlot tour." But it was just such a cool playground because the scale was done so well, and you truly feel like you're stepping into the movie.
I think it's the best one Disney's done, right?
100%.
I don't think there's any other better kids playground.
There's nothing on that scale.
I'm looking at pictures
Emily,
right now.
did you get to go as a kid?
Yeah, I remember going, and I'm looking at pictures right now on Google just to kind of like jog more memories. And this is seriously just a time capsule of the 80s and 90s. There's a Kodak film canister that had a slide that went through it. Kids wouldn't know what that is today.
Nope.
You have the cookie. So you have the iconic film scenes, but then you also have Play-Doh, and the Play-Doh has like the original label with like the kids and the multicolor insignia on it, and it's just great. And Jeff, I totally agree that Toy Story Land could use some grass, and that grass would provide much needed shade without having to use umbrellas. It fits so well.
I used to call a Bugs Land Honey, I Shrunk the Kids Land at Disney California Adventure. Yeah,
I could see that. Very similar. I remember from the playground there was like Quark's nose, and you would hear him sniff. Like when you were in one part of the playground, there was like spider web climbing ropes, and as I posted on our Instagram and Twitter, there's a great photo op where you could sit on top of Auntie, and the scale of that was like perfect.
I hope
have
Auntie
a picture somewhere from Kodak film.
Yeah, right. I really hope Auntie is in archives, but I have a feeling that Auntie is just in a dumpster set.
Well, there's a set piece of Heimlich's Choo Choo Train at Pixar, so it gives me hope that somebody was like, maybe it's in someone's backyard, but even that, like, somebody deserved to have it and keep it. Auntie doesn't need to die a second time.
No, I mean, Auntie is such a... In fact, I know we're going to get to it, but that scene in Prop Culture where we see the remains of the Auntie from the movie, whew, that's some tough stuff to see. I'll tell you. Gets me emotional.
Before we get to Prop Culture, are there any other ways you'd like to see Honey, I Shrunk the Kids incorporated back into the parks? I think reusing those Imagineering set pieces was a great idea, but are there other opportunities?
I want to see the playground come back. I think we could redo All-Star Movies to be more movie sets. And not just bring Honey, I Shrunk the Kids there, but also other films. Instead of just having giant characters, like you can go full out of movie sets. And we're in the age of Instagram. If you bring these back, people are going to want to stay there. They're going to want to post about it. And I think that'd be the great place to put it. Because as we're evolving the parks, I'm having a hard time maybe pinpointing where to put it. But I think All-Star Movies, if we were to revamp that resort, would be the perfect place.
I love that. I hadn't thought about resorts. I feel like when we go to the parks, we think about, the theme parks and the gated admission itself, but making the resorts a destination and then pulling in scenes from other places is such a great idea. I'd like to see, I know this is something that exists, but I feel like the Magic Eye Theater, which is where Honey, I Shrunk the Audience was shown. It's also where Captain EO was. There's currently Pixar shorts. It's a theater. How hard is it to change out the movies and like reprogram some effects. It would be fun to see some of those on a more rotating basis versus I feel like the shorts aren't very repeatable. Like I can watch the Pixar shorts on Disney Plus right now, whereas something like Honey, I Shrunk the Audience and Captain EO are exclusive to the theme park and can't be revisited in that way.
I was really, 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 really hoping that they would bring back Honey, I Shrunk the Audience for 80s night at Disneyland. I was like, this is the perfect time to pull out that film. And even if all the effects aren't in use, I would still love that. And speaking of 80s night, I was really hoping for a Wayne Szalinski meet and greet, which I think should be something that exists at all. But like over in Pixie Hollow at Disneyland, they have the giant blades of grass and stuff where you meet Tinkerbell. I was like, how cool would a Wayne Szalinski meet and greet be here for 80s night?
That'd be fun.
I would lose my mind. I was very happy to see they did have the oversized VHS Honey, I Shrunk the Kids tape at 80s night, which was a nice Honey, I Shrunk the Kids nod. But a Wayne Szalinski meet and greet should have been there. I don't even need a big major attraction for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I just want those nods to keep coming. Like I said, I love him in Journey into Imagination in the queue. I love seeing his, Professor Wayne Szalinski's name on the door. Just keep giving me those nods and, let me know that Disney hasn't forgotten this epic movie, because we haven't heard anything about this whole Lego sequel in a long time. The whole thing with Josh Gad. I don't know if it's going to happen anymore. We'll see.
Courtney, I like your idea of if we can even just, like you said, a rotating basis. I think it would also just bring a little bit back to Journey into Imagination by seeing if it's an institute, you're expecting more than one attraction, I guess, or something with that linking. And I love when Disney does have those interlocking stories between attractions. And we lost that when we lost Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. So we mentioned prop culture a few times already. So I just wanted to ask, what did you guys think of seeing that episode when it was included in the series? And did you have a favorite prop?
Oh, well, I know we're running a little long here, but I have a story I have to tell about this.
No, go for it. You're fine.
Do you even know this story, Courtney?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, I was at the press day for the Walt Disney Archives exhibit at somewhere down by Disneyland. And I'm walking around and, I'm lucky enough to go to a lot of these archive things. And, after a while it becomes a little bit redundant and you're like, okay, cool. I turn the corner and there is the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids shrink ray. And I lose my mind.
Oh my God.
And who's like next to me but Becky Klein, who runs archives. And she had a good laugh over it. And I was like, oh my gosh, where has this been all my life? I mean, I gave a giddy scream in a museum. Okay. Not cool. With the press there. Awesome. So she starts telling me about it. And this is the first time I ever heard about this show called Prop Culture. And she mentions it. She's like, yeah, they brought it back to life for this show on Disney Plus called Prop Culture. I'm like, that's amazing. She's like, yeah, Rick Moranis came to be part of it. And I was like, what? I'm like, I need to see this. When is this coming to Disney Plus? She's like, you don't even have to wait. Turn the corner. There's a monitor and they're showing the clip. Giddy doesn't even begin to describe how overjoyed I was.
I truly love that moment for you because this is your thing. So just, I can only picture like what that meant to you. I was going to ask, I don't think I had heard that story, if you knew that Rick Moranis had like returned for that. Cause my understanding is that's a pretty big deal. Like he does not make a lot of appearances. So I think that speaks to like his love of the role and affinity for this film.
Yeah. He's been showing up a little bit more, I'd say, in the last 12 months. He did a commercial with Ryan Reynolds, I know, and he did a documentary, I believe, about SCTV, but I don't think it's been released yet. So he's inching his way back. He's supposedly on board if this whole shrunk thing happens for Disney, or for theaters, supposedly. The Josh Gad project, if that happens, he's coming back, from what I understand.
It makes sense because I think I'd read he initially retired after, unfortunately, his wife passed and he had young kids. Yeah. So I would expect, it's been like 20 years. So his kids are older and adults and more independent. So he probably feels that he does have the time to devote to that now. So I'm glad to see him in anything.
He's an American icon. I know he's Canadian, but oh my gosh, he is an American icon. He's a legend, that guy. And yeah, I just love how excited people get whenever, like, he did an interview for the Hollywood Reporter back when like the Ghostbusters movie came back, the one with the girls, and he, like, people just get really, like, his name starts trending on social media whenever he does something, and I'm like, this guy's amazing. Gosh, I love him. But in any case, I loved prop culture so much. The shrink ray is obviously my favorite prop.
I hope we get another repeat of that series with more stuff. I don't know like how COVID would affect production, but that was one that it was released all at once, and we just sat down that Friday night and watched all of them in order. I actually, of course, enjoyed seeing Auntie, though. It was kind of sad. Like, I was like, I'm glad she is there, but not in great condition. But I thought it was interesting about the baseball that I love that the I forget what his position was now, but like he kept that for himself and was able to show it. I love when you get to see that like personal, tangible connection to it.
I also like the baseball. Actually, ones that they pointed out, my favorite props from the film, other than like the shrink ray is cool. I would have loved to have seen like more of the set pieces, like the giant cookie, but obviously those are probably gone. The Lego would have been so cool to see if they happen to have that, but I feel like those are definitely the number one pieces to just get tossed. But I really like, it reminded me of Flubber, all of the gadgets in the kitchen. I always thought they were so fun, because I think today when we think of like technology, it's sleek, it's minimalistic, and like you almost don't see all the moving parts. But I love that in Flubber, in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the whole mad scientist, like I invent things. It has so many different moving parts that are repurposed appliances or everyday objects. And those are just so fun to me that I wish we saw more of those, but I'm glad that they reference them in prop culture, again, with the different people who built the props, saying how much fun they had putting those together, even though they're just a very small piece of the film.
I love, there is a shot in prop culture where they show like a blueprint of the shrink ray. And all I got to say is, if anybody listening to this is like somebody who knows how to, draw blueprints, put that in an Etsy shop and I will buy it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that would be a really fun poster. Well, as we wrap up, we like to leave some recommendations for other resources that people who enjoyed this episode could check out, whether it's related to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids specifically or our topic. So I'll kick us off. I would say this has inspired me personally to seek junior novelizations of other films. I think just for personal reading, it'd be fun. Like, oh, I really like this movie. Let's see how they tackle it. Maybe it'll be really different and fun to see how that changes. Jeff, your love for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is on par with my love of Hocus Pocus. That's actually how I became friends with Aaron, because I think I was the first person to have a copy of his book and like tweet about it. And that's how we got connected. So I believe when we had him on to talk Hocus Pocus, he mentioned there's a junior novelization of that. So I need to seek that out.
Very expensive. That's why I don't have it. You won't find that for less than $50. No. Yeah, it's like $50+. I really want to read that because I know that screenplay, I know for a fact that screenplay went through a lot of changes, and that there's scenes in that junior novelization that are not in the movie. So I am honestly trying to get my hands on that as well. If you get your hands on it, let me know.
We'll do a little book traveling book piece.
I want to read that as well.
For sure.
I like, Jeff, you mentioned you have Jurassic Park. I would love to read the kids' Jurassic Park, as well as the original book Jurassic Park, because that is a book itself too. So seeing the book, the film, and then the junior novelization would be really interesting.
Oh, that's a good point. True. It's like trifecta.
Listen, I've got the Honey, I Blew Up the Kid one as well. So if listeners are really enjoying this episode, write into Emily and Courtney and let them know that you want Honey, I Blew Up the Kid next. And I will more than happily come back to discuss that one.
Perfect. Do you have any other ones that you'd recommend? Like, what is your feeling on the TV show? I'm dying to know.
I've never watched an episode of the TV show.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, without it, it just seems sacrilegious to have anybody but Rick Moranis play Wayne Zielinski, and no fault to the actor who got the role. It's a gig. I would take it as well, but I don't want to see anybody else play that role. And that was my biggest concern when I heard Shrunk was happening. And they're like, and Josh Gad. And not until they clarified, like, Josh Gad is playing an adult Nick Zielinski 30 years later, and that, Wayne Zielinski would be a grandfather and Rick Moranis would come back. Then I was like, oh, okay, I accept. So yeah, no interest in the TV show. I will say, I have the children's book as well. So we read the junior novelization, but there's a children's picture book of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids that I read through even faster, of course. And it's interesting to read the similarities between the two books, which I think just confirms there was stuff in the screenplay that never made it to the final film, which was interesting. But also the making of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is, if you have any interest in filmmaking or special effects, is fascinating. It's hosted by Rick Moranis, and it was on Disney Channel. You can find really bad quality recordings of it on YouTube, but I suggest that everybody listening to this go to Disney Plus and go to that section where you can request titles and request the making of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, so that it will eventually be on Disney Plus. I think that would be great.
That would be really cool. And my suggestions were going to be, if you like films like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids because of the special effects, go check out Prop Culture if you haven't already, but also check out other films of the 80s like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Little Shop of Horrors, which also has Rick Moranis, but there's a lot of those practical effects and puppetry and stop motion, and really just any of those films from the 80s would be great to check out because you can see those effects in multiple films. Tron has those practical effects as well. So going back and revisiting some of those live action features from the 80s and early 90s, I think would be really cool.
I'll go out on a limb and say that Little Shop of Horrors has the best puppetry ever captured on film. I will say that.
And a connection to our last episode, since it was directed by Frank Oz, and we were chatting Muppets with Brian J. Jones. But next up, we will feature a second episode this month to honor March as Women's History Month. So stay tuned in a few weeks for The Queens of Animation, the untold story of the women who transformed the world of Disney and made cinematic history by Natalia Holt. If that topic sounds interesting to you, we recommend checking out episode 18 of our show, where we discussed Ink and Paint, the Women of Walt Disney's Animation, which is the official Disney release, or episode 94 of the Tomorrow Society podcast, where host Dan Heaton interviewed Natalia about this text and her research. We're likely to reference both on our upcoming discussion of the text, but in the meantime, you can keep up with Book of the Mouse Club on Twitter and Instagram at Book of the Mouse, or email us with questions or ideas to bookofthemouseclub@gmail.com. Please be sure to leave us a review on iTunes so others can find our podcast and read and listen along with us. You can keep up with me, Courtney, on Instagram at GreatGutsby, or on Twitter at Courtney_Guth.
And you can follow me, Emily, on Instagram and Twitter at the same handle, at Emily_McD. And Jeff, please tell our listeners where they can keep up with you.
Absolutely. You can head to DizneyCoastToCoast.com. That is spelled Disney with a Z. Although, a little secret, if you spell it the right way, it'll still get you to the correct website. That's DizneyCoastToCoast.com. But if you're searching for the podcast on podcast apps, certainly look for Disney with a Z, Coast to Coast.
Awesome. And we have all of your other information linked in our show notes. So if you are looking for Twitter, we have the correct website as well. So you can always just check out our show notes and find it there. And Jeff, we always close out our episodes with a quote. And as our guest, you get to do the honor. And you were hinting earlier that you had something special picked out for us.
I actually cheated. I have two quotes, but the first one here is this is something that Wayne Zielinski says in the book, and it's so out of character, in my opinion. He goes, this is after, he realizes the machine worked and the kids are back to normal size. And he goes, I'm going to be famous. You know that? Mr. Zielinski said, I can go back to the scientific congress now with proof. I have a machine that works and I can show it to them. They're going to love it. And I was just like, this makes no sense for this character, at least the way we know him in the movie, because he would never brag about this stuff. As we find out in the sequel, he never tells anybody about this because he doesn't want the kids to be tested and prodded. And this just, I'm going to be famous line just feels so off character for Wayne Zielinski to me. So I found that fascinating. But then...
Completely agree.
Yeah. Although if Chevy Chase were playing the role, I could see it.
Yep.
But then there's the line, it's a long story, Nick began. A big story, Russ said. No, Nick corrected him. I think it's a teeny weeny story. Now that's the last line of the book. And if you don't know,
the original working title.
That's right. The original title of the movie was Teeny Weenies.
I feel like we got a little bit of trivia time from your show learning that tidbit there. So great picks. Thank you so much for sharing those with us and for sharing this time. I'm glad we got to talk about one of your favorite films so enthusiastically.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. This has been so much fun. And maybe I'll just go pop in that VHS now.
Tuning on Disney Plus, I think it's time for me to watch the sequel.
Yes.
See ya.
French class.
The Mouse Club has no affiliation with the Walt Disney Company. The views and opinions expressed by hosts and participants are theirs and theirs alone. They do not represent the organizations or companies they happen to work for.